Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Christian Roberts. I am the Director of Education at the Dallas Opera.
My name is Quo Johnson. I'm the Education and Company Culture Manager for the Dallas Opera.
And we want to thank you all for joining us today for this episode of Taking the Stage with Kristian
and Quo.
So on last week's episode, we want to do a little recap for everybody. We talked about the kind of show we wanted this to be. Quo, would you like to go over that a little bit again?
Absolutely. So we introduce ourselves, of course, and what Taking the Stage with Kristian and Quo is all about. We are addressing some of the issues that we're finding in the industry, as well as in a lot of different sectors, and how those things cross over through the arts, how they cross over through education, how they cross over to access for resources, and how we address those issues and how we create meaningful conversations for those. We're wanting to make sure that we invite others into the space so that we can share in those conversations. So this show is all about creating meaningful conversations and then extending that conversation so that we can involve everyone else. We want to make sure that we do so in a space that is healing, right? We want to reduce harm, always want to reduce harm, but we want to have some real conversations. We want to talk about it. And then we want to work so that we can create collective solutions so that we can find ways to address those issues together.
Very good. And that's exactly what the idea is. I couldn't have said it better myself. So this week's topic, we have decided to discuss equity, diversity, and inclusion. So I should say topics. I want to do a little overview of these terms for you all. They've become sort of buzzwords as late. And I think it's really important that we make sure that they don't become buzzwords. And I will have Quo talk about these a little bit. Quo, can you talk a little bit about the way they become buzzwords and why it's important that they don't?
Yes. So we are seeing a lot of talk about diversity in the arts, how we love to have diverse workplaces and how businesses are better when they are more diverse. And all of those things are wonderful and they're good, but they've become major buzzwords if we do not acknowledge that there are different layers to these terms and that there is context that must be taken into consideration when applying these terms or seeking to achieve these states, right? Achieve equity, achieve diversity, achieve inclusion. Because then it becomes this issue where people are simply doing it just to say that they can do it. And we lose out on the ability to benefit from having those things within our establishments and within our fields.
So because these terms have become buzzwords, we wanted to make sure that we did a show where we actually set a foundation for these terms, actually defining these terms. So because this is where your area of expertise lies, it crosses in education and EDI, particularly with your role as Education and Company Culture Manager. Could you give us a definition of equity and what that looks like?
Yes. There are official definitions, but I kind of want to make sure that when I do my work, I always want to make sure I make it as simple as possible, right? So if we have not to create oversimplify it, right? Because it should be understood that these things are complex, but once we kind of have a foundation, we can move forward. So in my work, I always explain equity through the official definition, and that equity is what we're wanting to achieve. We're wanting to achieve equity, and equity work requires that we work to provide everyone with everything they need so that they can participate to the fullest of their ability, right? Or so that they can participate fully in everything within their ability. So it's a matter of understanding that if we are providing everyone with what they need, that means everyone does not get the same thing. And that also means that everyone does not have the same access currently. So we are trying to work to combat those issues, to combat that unfairness, right? We're trying to achieve fairness by making sure that everyone has the tools or the resources that they need to participate. I always want to make it clear that equity and equality are not the same things. I can give everyone a blanket solution, but that does not solve all of the issues that others are facing in a given space. So we want to make sure that we're not just saying, oh, but you have equal access. What does that mean if you don't have the same education, right? What does that mean
Mhm.
if you were not able to enter into the space the same way? What does that mean when you are affected by other forms or systems of discrimination, but you want everyone to provide the same product or produce at the same level, without providing the resources necessary for each individual situation or each unique type of situation. So that is what we're wanting to make sure that we focus on in equity, that it is not equality, right? But it is making sure that we're listening to the needs of others and then providing resources so that people can actually contribute and they can participate to the fullest of their ability.
That's a great answer, and it's a very thorough one. I think that covers everything, and it covered all of my follow-up questions. As you guys can see, I'm sort of playing Oprah of the op because, like I said, this is Quo's area of expertise. So we're doing a lot of question asking, but also, intertwining my thoughts within hers, just because I have some area. So some of this is in my area of expertise as well, particularly with doing work in education, working with different parts of the community and such. So I've seen a little bit of this just in the way, and I've always used it as a way to inform the kind of work that I do. So I always say that having equity defined by itself, having diversity defined by itself, having inclusion defined by itself is great. But we want to make sure that we understand that these terms really do not work if the other ones are not around. So I
Absolutely.
want to move on to what diversity is, because a lot of people, when you hear this kind of work, a lot of times you only see diversity and inclusion, and the equity part is left out. So I'm glad you so eloquently described and explained to us what equity is. So can we move into diversity now? What does that look like?
Yes. Again, we see a lot of workplaces, a lot of industries, a lot of sectors who say or proudly boast how much they value diversity. Diversity in its simplest form is just differences, right? But this is acknowledging the psychological, the physical, the social differences that we all have. We all have differences. No two individuals are the same. With that being said, if you have more than one person in a room, that room is diverse. So it is very important that we are explicit or we are very clear about the type of diversity we seek. So if it is a matter of race, if it is a matter of gender, if it is a matter of nationality, of age, if it is a matter of ability, mixed abilities, things like that, orientation, we want to make sure that we're very clear about that, because we run into the risk of saying that we have a diverse organization and everyone is not looking for the same type of diversity, right? So we want to make sure that we're clear about that and that we are respectful of the differences that others have, but also that we're using that to the fullest of our ability. With that, and I know you talk about it often as well, kind of we run into it being a buzzword because it becomes a checkbox activity. It becomes this
Mm-hmm.
situation in which you have to prove that you have a diverse workplace. And so you go out and you seek different individuals simply because they're different, not necessarily qualified, or not necessarily given the proper resources, or not necessarily having access to the proper resources. It's just a matter of, okay, check. I got this, check. I got this, check. And I always caution against that when you value diversity more than equity or more than inclusion, because you run the risk of treating people, like I say in all my sessions, you treat people like Pokemon, and then you want to catch them all.
Catch them
African
all.
American woman, I choose you. Yeah, no, that doesn't work, because it creates this very dangerous situation, right? And as you always say, and as we always quote, where you're integrating people into a burning house because
Yes,
they're
thank you,
there because
Dr. King,
they're
for that.
right.
Thank you, Dr. King, for that. That's exactly what it is. You're putting people into a situation that can be hostile if you're
Mm-hmm.
just simply looking to create a diverse space, but not creating a space where they feel, which is our next term, inclusion, where they are being treated as somebody who is actually a part of the group. Their contribution is relevant. So I won't go into too much detail in that, because I'm going to let you handle that part. But I think it's very important, like I said, the terms equity diversity, and of course those are great, but they mean nothing if you're not pushing inclusivity. So let's talk a little bit about inclusion.
So inclusion is kind of as it sounds with its root word, it's to include. Inclusion is a state in which you are allowing others, not even allowing, it is required, it is necessary. You acknowledge that you need the contributions of others to make the best decisions possible. I always liken it to kind of how kids in certain grades, you know, those grades, the younger grades before they get to that
Yes,
one grade where they're too cool
baby
for school.
babies.
They're too cool for school. We all go through it, but
Yep.
where they want to play with everyone, they want to learn from everyone, they want to try everything. They want so many things to kind of affect and inform what they do and how they enjoy their world. And if we had that same approach in which we were including everyone, we were seeking information from everyone, we were seeking contributions, true contributions from everyone, and then sharing decision-making power, right? So it's not so much as simply having someone in the room or at the table, as we say, but ensuring that those individuals also make decisions and make major decisions. This can be a buzzword because it can turn into tokenism in a way, right? Where we have diversity, you have someone who thinks differently, who lives differently, who experiences life through a different lens at the table, simply just so they can be there. And you're including them at the table, but you're not including them in the decision making. You're asking them for their opinion, you're asking them for their advice, you're asking them for their experiences so that they can help inform your work. But if it is not done sincerely and if it is not done without restriction, then it is not inclusive. So it's not an inclusive environment. So I always like to study and look at organizations that value inclusivity, right? We value making sure that our environment is one that is welcoming and supportive for everyone and all of the differences that exist within a safe pattern or within a safe way. So in looking at inclusion and inclusivity, as you said, it's necessary for all three of those to be there. A lot of times we see diversity and inclusion. We do not always see equity. One, because it is a term that has not been clearly defined or easily defined by those who are seeking to do the work in a way, or create these policies, because everyone's been so big on equality. And so as we go through this work, we want to make sure, and as we go through our shows and our sessions, we want to make sure that we are ensuring that we're coming from a stance that is equitable. We're always considering, okay, well, what does everyone else need? And then that we are considering the diversity in the room. Where are the differences? And it's okay. How do we celebrate those differences? And then that we're being inclusive. Who else has not had a say in what we're doing? Because we realize that if we have more people to contribute to the decisions that we make better decisions.
Absolutely, and you have far more impact with those extra voices in the room, that don't feel like they're extras in the room, that they are a part of the conversations. So I think that is very important, and we've seen it. You know, it's funny because, like I said, we've seen it. These terms become buzzwords. We've seen it sort of turn into, like we said, these checkbox things. And so it sort of makes it feel like it's superficial, and it's, oh, okay, it's something that we have to do. Oh, I got somebody that's African American and a woman, two check boxes. So we have to be very, very careful that we don't do that. So I think that, like you said, that we're doing it in a way that's safe, the way that's proper, and in a way that is productive, and progresses us forward, in a way that is sort of transformative. So this is the part where we ask you for your opinion, folks, and ask you for your ideas on this. Quo has so eloquently defined these terms. She has given us some context for these. We will have episodes where we dive into these a little more deeply, how they affect education, how they affect the arts, how they affect our world. So be on the lookout for that. But now is where we invite you to our comment section and to Tell us what you think. Ask us about some things that you'd like to see us address. Tell us about some of your experience. And we never, ever want to end without having some positive notes, because as we said last week, not toxic positivity, but positivity that is progressive, productive, and that actually moves us in a right direction and doesn't ignore that there are things that are going on that are not so positive, but we can work together collectively to ensure that things do get better. And so one of the things I asked Quo before we were talking about this show and the way that we were going to run it is, what are the positive notes? Because sometimes EDI work, equity, diversity, inclusion work, can seem so impossible and insurmountable. So what are the positive things about doing this? What are the positive things you see going on around this work?
Yes, absolutely. It can seem daunting because we are attempting to reverse a system, to replace a system, if you will. Not so much reverse, but to dismantle and replace a system. And that can seem extremely daunting. But I always encourage people to understand that it's bigger than any one person, or any one organization. And because of that, we have to take it all a step at a time, and we all have to take those steps together. So we do have to take action, but as we take that action, it's important that we commit to making a change and to reducing harm, but that we also commit to providing grace for ourselves and for others as we kind of figure out the best ways to serve others and the best ways to get those changes to come about. In this, I also want to acknowledge me, myself in this work. I am still very much, I wouldn't say new to the work, but there are elders in my community who have been doing this work for decades. There are organizations that are doing amazing work when it comes to equity. So it is important that we lean into that information, lean into that wisdom, and know that we are not alone in this work, and that there are organizations that are working to correct some of these issues and some of these inequities. And then that we always make sure that we pay attention to the fact that conversations are happening. So people are talking, and that's great. As people talk, we can always use that as momentum to begin to consider the differences in how we see the world, and then the differences in how others experience the world. And then from there, we can always make sure that it starts with being mindful, right? That's where everything
Absolutely.
starts. Just be mindful of yourself, be mindful of the things you've experienced, and then be mindful that not everyone has that same experience. Not everyone has that same background. Not everyone has that same history. Not everyone has that same access, right? And so once we get to the point where we consider that others are experiencing things differently in different sectors, then that will allow us to be more mindful and more open to this work, to equity work, and then to moving us forward so that we can get to a state where we have more equity.
And I think something that I took away from your conversation, and the conversation we've been having, and to approach things with grace. And even last week we talked about approaching things with respect. So I think that ultimately this is what this show is about. It's about problem solving, like you said, finding creative ways, collective solutions. So I think that's a call to action, folks. Finding a way to move forward. So like I said, that comment section is open. Like we said, we're open to private messaging on our Instagram pages. We appreciate you joining us on TDO Network for taking the stage with Kristian
And Quo.
And we hope to see you again next week, folks. Thank you for signing on.
All right, have a good one.